my name is Amanda Aguirre, and a few things before we begin. First of all, I have done this many times at this point, and I keep messing up, and I'm trying to make it perfect, and it's just not going to happen. So I'm going to do the best that I can, and hope that that is good enough. One more thing that I would like to mention is that I cannot get this where the PowerPoint is in the same area as I am, unless I were to do this over and over and then it's backwards, so that's not working either. I didn't see in the prompt where it said that it was necessary that we show our PowerPoint at the same time as we're presenting, so I'll present. Of course, I will upload the PowerPoint and you'll be able to see both at the same time. So, to begin, the prompt that I've chosen: what assistive technology devices are most beneficial for deaf and hard of hearing students? This year I have had my first student that is deaf. They do wear a cochlear implant, so I had to learn a lot about that as I was going. I'm still learning a lot about it. Their parents are very supportive, thankfully, in giving the district lots of information about her specific needs, as well as just general information about students that are deaf of hard of hearing. And I'm grateful for that, but I'm learning as well on my own. During this class, I've learned some about assistive technology as well, not only for deaf of hard of hearing students, but students across the board who can benefit from assistive technology. So, that being said, I will get into this. There are 5 assistive technologies that I found that I thought would be great and useful for students who are deaf or hard of hearing, and I'm going to begin those now. So first, I found audio and visual FM systems. This creates speech to reading for students, and it also has a lip reading option. So an example of this: there's a small monitor on the desk for a student, and the teacher will wear a microphone and also a little camera, or there will be a camera set up, and they will still have the microphone attached either to their, shirt lapel or whatever they have. And it will translate their spoken word into readable text for the students to read. Also, the camera helps them for a lip reading option, as well as if the student is watching the monitor the entire time, they don't have to keep looking back and forth to see what the teacher is actually doing. They have it on the screen available to them so that they don't have to keep looking back and forth. I think this is a great option. I don't know how well this would work in situations where there were a large group, just because kids are rowdy. But we have a lot of small group. Gratefully, we go to a small school, and so we have a lot of options to pull our kids aside, have small group. Our class sizes are small. They really run like 15 to 20 students, and I think that would be a great option for us. Second one, I found personal FM students. So this can be connected to a student's hearing aid or their cochlear implant. It can be used with devices like a headset or even a desktop speaker for those students that don't have a cochlear implant or a hearing aid. They're portable, they're relatively easy to use, they decrease that. For those that wear a cochlear implant, sometimes those outside noises, even for me, and I don't have a cochlear implant, they can be distracting. So whenever they have that device, they hear all levels of that, like the HVAC system, students tapping their pencil, chewing your fingernails. You just don't realize what all makes noises, and they pick up on that through the system. So this can decrease some of that level for those students and those overwhelming sounds. Some cons of this that I just added this, I didn't find it, but personally I came across this with my student that is deaf this year. It's embarrassing for them to use the FM. She does not like to bring it to school. She thinks that it draws attention to her, and she's not one that likes to have a lot of attention on her. So that has been a struggle for us to get her to use the FM system or give it to her teachers during that time. So I think that it's important to take into consideration the students' feelings whenever we're telling them, oh, you need to use an FM device. Well, on high school level, I think it should be their choice if they would like to use the FM or not, and if they decide not to, I think that the teachers, the family members, special ed teachers and directors need to take that into consideration and make alternatives for that student. And in this case, we have. And I think that that's the student's right to to use their FM system or not. Another one, this was a new one that I found. It's called CART, or Communication Access Real-Time Translation. They have apps available. They also have just, I believe that it's just a business that you can use. And this is a trained individual, so it's not necessarily somebody that will just be translating, like it wouldn't be a peer, it wouldn't be a teacher. This is a trained individual from a third party who will transcribe the spoken words that are given and put them into text for the students, and it will be displayed on the monitor. So some cons that I personally think would arise with this: we're in a rural area, so if we didn't have internet connection that day for whatever reason, this service is unavailable to that student. If they didn't have cell phone service, the service is unavailable to that student. If that person is sick or the company is overwhelmed with people using their service, it's unavailable again. So reliability there, I think, is something to take into consideration with this program. But I do think that it's interesting, and it may work for some. And I think maybe in populated areas or areas where it's maybe closer to home, that this would be really useful for students. Another one I found, auto captioning services. I think this is kind of more common, and people who are not deaf, hard of hearing use this. So like Siri services, this provides captions through an automated system. So they speak into it, and it's translated into written text that the students can read. One problem I think with this would be it's not always accurate. So we have considered going virtual and doing distance for COVID reasons at our school, and the student has stated at their previous school this didn't really work, because whenever they were watching their teacher on video call give a presentation or anything, it was translating their words incorrectly, and then it didn't make sense, and they're spending extra time trying to think what word fits in that blank. I don't understand what goes there. And that could be just an added stress for the student when it's not necessary. So there was another program that I found, the Described Caption Media. This is a program that schools and families can use for pre-recorded audio and video. They can send it in. There will be a person who personally translates all of the information there and sends the video back to the school or the family member, whoever has sent it in, and it'll be automatically transcribed with the correct punctuation, the correct words, the correct capitalization. Everything will be correct for the student, and I think that is a great auto captioning service. So, well, maybe not necessarily an auto captioning, but an alternative to that. I think that's a great alternative for pre-recorded videos, audios, movies, even if the class is going to watch, and things like that. So I really thought that was neat. I wanted to add it for reference later on. And then TTY, this is a common one, text and other adaptive telephones. Whenever I took ASL in my undergrad classes, they talked a lot about TTY, and we watched a video where when this first came out, I believe it was like maybe in the 80s, and I may be wrong on that, don't quote me, I'm remembering that from several years ago, but people were very excited about having a way to communicate with their friends and family members, and I think that was awesome. We have a lot of that now, so with updated technology, we've got cell phones that you can text on, phone applications that will connect you with people if they don't have a phone number, emails, and then FaceTime or video calls for those who participate and use ASL, which I think is amazing as well. So two of the, here I go, mistaking myself again. Two of the research papers that I have reviewed here. The first one is called Assistive Hearing Technology for Deaf and Hard of Hearing Student Spoken Language Learners. So this was written by Holt in 2019. He discussed various achievements of assistive technology over the last 50 years. So students have a lot of assistive technology that is available to them now, but it still leaves those gaps for learning. So the attempt here was to uncover some of those gaps in learning and see how they can create um, ideas and ways for those deaf and hard of hearing students to be more successful in their use of assistive technology. So students may not be able to hear all sounds, even with assistive technology, cochlear implants. And that is based on their level of hearing loss. And hearing loss is a spectrum. I've learned this over time as well. That spectrum doesn't look consistently like A to B, but rather maybe a circle. And they may be here on one sound and here on another, and here on another sound and here on another. So I thought that was interesting as well. So outside noises will decrease their level of processing. Noisy classrooms, hallways, heating and air units, outside noises like pens clicking, and more. Even with those negative aspects of AT, it's still really important to find those that will be useful for that particular student. If a student doesn't have a cochlear implant or a hearing aid, there's still other versions of assistive technology that will be beneficial, like that speech to text like we had talked to earlier. So one thing that Holt had pointed out is that small group activities, teacher one-to-one involvement, and parent participation is huge whenever using and providing assistive technology in a way that's going to be most beneficial for the student. So the study listed 9 areas of research and deficits in the knowledge of deaf or hard of hearing students that should be more thoroughly investigated. And as I'm presenting this, I realized that I did not go over those, and I'm going to pause now and pull those up so that I can read them.